Right. Okay, so we are recording. Holy shit. I just woke up from sleep right now, man, and yet again I had this dream. Like it's been going for a week now. Like I've been having this reoccurring dream of me being chased by the police. And as I'm waking up, I'm hearing sirens. And I don't know why, man. Like I've been having this same dream. I mean, the central theme of the dream is me obviously being chased by cops, but different variations of it. By the end of the day, me being chased by cops. I mean, I just woke up from sleep right now and I decided that let me just rush and let me just start this stuff, man, and talk about it a little bit. This dream I had right now is like I had to like leave the house very late in the night, and then I have to like get back home because obviously you're not supposed to be outside if you're a black person on this godforsaken island. You're not supposed to be outside after I mean, if you're reasonable enough, you're supposed to know that you're not supposed to be outside after at a certain point in time in the night. So you have to like get back home. So in the dream, I'm trying to like get back to my fucking apartment, and cops are chasing me, and then I have to like pass through this building that looks like it's a school or some sort of orphanage home, and like it's a very long building, and so I have to like run from one end of the building to another, and then somehow the police turns into fucking zombies and start chasing me. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I'm running, and then it gets to a point where I'm like, hold on, this is not real. I had to like reassure myself in the dream that this is not real. And then I started telling myself to fucking wake up, Marv, wake the fuck up. And then I woke up. So that's that about that. Anyway, that's me waking up from a fucking nightmare. I don't know why I've been just thinking. I don't know why I've been dreaming of cops chasing me. I don't know what this is foreshadowing. I hope it's not foreshadowing anything. Anyway, welcome back to another episode of your potentially favorite podcast. Bear with me, with your host, me, General Prime. I hope you guys had a productive week, or should I say had a basically good week. I know I did. Mine was obnoxiously stressful. It was just so fucking stressful, man. And I'm glad it's over, and we're starting another one any moment from now. So, what's the first thing? I have a lot of things I want to talk about today. The first one being me. Whenever it's happened, it has happened like countless times anyway, and whenever it happens, I don't even know what to say. Like I'm always just speechless and mute, and not because I don't really have any comeback, or I don't know what to say, or I don't know how to defend myself. It's just because I feel so it leaves me so speechless and so like, what the fuck is this people? What the fuck are you talking about, man? So what I'm trying to say is that whenever let's say I'm having a heated argument with someone concerning religion, even though, first of all, the first thing I want to say is, even though I always somehow find myself talking to people about religion and why in my opinion, to an extent, it doesn't make any sense. I don't like it. I don't like talking about religion. I don't like talking about why I don't believe in God or whatever. I don't like because initially when I first lost my faith, I mean, it's something that I'll talk about all the time because I was understandably angry because of the lies I felt like I had been told all my life. So yeah, I guess that was why I needed to like vent and just talk about it all the time. But for a while now, more than like a year or 2 years now, going to 3 years now, it's something I don't like talking about. I just like keeping it to myself because obviously everyone has the right to believe whatever they want to believe in, and I have come to understand that there is a necessity for religion as much as I don't know where I'm going with that, but what I'm trying to say is, when I find myself in a situation where I have to like talk about religion, or I'm arguing with people, or we're just like having a heated argument or something, and it gets to a point where I'm like, oh, the Bible doesn't make any sense because it has a lot of contradictions and flaws and errors, and it was not written by the people that claim to have written it, or it's not written by the people in the book itself. For example, fucking Moses, he's said to have written the first 5 books of the Bible, yet he died in Deuteronomy, so it doesn't make any sense. People start saying, how about your own fucking science books, like the books I read, the history books I read, the science books I read, and blah blah blah. I'm like, and then they say the books you read are also written by men, and those men don't know what. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? It just, I'm like, what? Okay, let's try to analyze this properly, right? Let's try to analyze it as best as we can. I don't want to waste time on this because there's a lot I want to talk about today. If you say the books that I read are written by men, by just mere mortals, and the science books are also wrong, or they are not as correct as the Bible, where are you basing that claim on? Because it does not make any sense. The difference between, I just want to make it clear, the difference between the books I read and your Bible or your religious text or whatever is that, let's say, what is his name? Ricky Gervais. He's a fucking, we all know him now. It's like the comedian. There is this analogy that he gave. Say, there is an earthquake, or let's say there is a cosmic, something happens and everybody on earth dies, right? And everything is destroyed, and somehow creation starts again. And 100,000 years from now, man has come back to where we are, and we have tried to like rebuild and recreate everything that we lost, right? There are going to be different gods different from the ones that we presently have, because obviously man has this innate need to want to worship, to want to be subject to something higher, right? So obviously there are going to be different gods in that time, with their own principles and their own philosophies and their own ways of worship and their own tangents and their own ways of life and belief system and that and all of that. Everything is going to be different from how they currently are. But when it comes to science, it's going to be the same, because science follows specific rules and laws, and wherever you go and however long it takes, those laws remain constant, right? So that's just it. It cannot change. And I don't know why I am having calls right now. I'm supposed to like turn this phone off because I am actually busy. I can't take any calls. So anyway, the difference between the books I read and your religious books is that they are actually demonstrable. Like, you can do the demonstration by yourself, you can carry out the experiments by yourself, you can do the observations by yourself and find out if they are true or if they are false. It doesn't make any sense. Like, when people ask me that why do I read these books, that these books are not, they are, some people say they are like made. I've actually had people tell me that they are made by the devil to confuse me. I'm like, how do these people think? Like, where is your thoughts process coming from, and where is it actually going to? It doesn't make any sense to me anyway. So please, you guys should stop telling me that the books I read are either made by the devil or they are made by mere mortals that don't know anything, or that don't know that don't know as much as your God. Doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, That's that about that. There's nothing more I want to talk about that. I don't like talking about religion, so let's just push that one behind. Anyway, so Brittany Griner is out of prison and she's been exchanged for an actual Russian terrorist, like a fucking weapon, or should I say, what is this? Is it a bomb maker or like a weapons dealer? That's crazy, man. That we are going to exchange. Like, I mean, the world that we're living in right now is weird and it's just odd. Like, if you were told, like, let's say 5 years ago, if you were told that 5 years in 5 years time that there there is going to be an exchange between a female basketballer and a Russian weapons weapons dealer. Like, who would ever believe that such a thing can happen? I understand that the situation that she was in was a was a weird one, and something needed to be done to like get her out of that situation as quickly and as soon as possible. But but it couldn't there have been any other way to like try to save her and try to like get her back to the states? Like, couldn't there have been where are they trying to tell me that there were no better what is it called? There were no better what's it fucking called? Negotiations. Like, there was no other way that they could come to an agreement to release her and keep this person that the whole world knows, even from his facial expressions, even his facial features, man. This person is an absolute monster. Like, imagine an actual Russian weapons dealer being man. This world is crazy, man. This world is just absolutely crazy. So, Brittany Griner, is that her name? Yeah, that's her name. Is that her name? Brittany Griner. I hope I'm talking about the right person, the basketballer. She's out of prison, thankfully, and I'm just trying to imagine what it feels like to be in a fucking Russian prison, man. I'm just trying to imagine the kind of hell, the kind of cold hell that cold hell it is to be in a Russian prison. I mean, when was she? I think she was arrested around, is it March or so, or I don't know, April, and um she's been there all this while, and she just recently got released. I wonder what kind of experiences she has gained from being in a Russian prison. I wonder what kind of stories. Like, I'm just waiting. I'm just hoping. Not hoping. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to follow her story up, because I would like to know what kind of experiences she had in that prison, and if her perspective, because everybody used to clown on her before because she was this feminist, fucking woke woke liberal fucking basketballer that felt like the patriarchy and men were to blame for all the problems that women are facing today, which obviously is a lie and false. So I would like to know if her perspective on that has changed, if she now understands. And also, she was also this person that was like, oh, capitalism is evil and blah blah blah, and America is bad, and America is evil, and America is a place of no freedom, and this and that. So I would like to know if her perspective on that has changed, because obviously Russia is no joke, and Russia does not have as much freedom as America has. And I want to know if her mind has been changed, if she sees America under a new light, and if her perspective on freedom and capitalism and patriarchy has changed. So that's something that that's something that I would really like to know. So well, I'm just kind of, I'm not going to clown on how, I'm not going to like follow everybody else to like um like belittle how, like hate on her. I sometimes I I just think about how as in how odd and how isolating and how lonely to be for like a black woman to be in a fucking Russian prison, man. Like, do you? I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the leaked footages of her in prison, in the Russian prison. Like, she had to like cut her hair because apparently her hair was freezing because of how cold it is in the fucking prison. God damn. Imagine you cutting your dreads. Like, she had dreads, right? Imagine cutting your dreadlocks because your dreads were your dreads was freezing because of how fucking cold it is. It has to be that's wild, man. That's fucking wild. God damn. So she had to like, and now she sounds like, I don't even know if that's how she's always sounded. Her voice is like, her voice is her voice is deeper than mine. I don't know why. So yeah, so she had to like cut her hair and this and that, and now she's out of prison on her way back to the States. Oh well, this life is not balanced though. This life is not balanced at all. Anyway, so here's another tangent. Here is a question that I have been thinking about for a while now. You know how I'm always thinking about stuff, and though they might be weird and though they might be unusual, I just like creating scenarios in my head and seeing and then trying to figure out the outcome of how these things work. So here's something that I've been thinking about for a while. Try to imagine, okay, I'm sure most of us have seen Wakanda, right? The movie. And apparently, what is his name? I've forgotten the guy. What is his name now? Stan Lee. He said that when he was creating Black Panther, he the reason he created Black Panther, what he had in mind at the time was he was trying to imagine, like, Black Panther is obviously the Wakandans were never colonized by either Europe or France or Portugal or any of these countries that's colonized Africa. So that was one of the reasons that made him create Wakanda, like this country that was never colonized. So here's my question: what if Africa was never colonized by the Europeans or the French or the Spanish? Like, how would Africa be like today if we were never colonized? I don't know if if anybody has ever thought of that question or ever had that idea in mind, like how we're going to be like if we were never colonized. Because this is where I look at it. Like right now, let's take Nigeria as an example. Like in Nigeria, we practice democracy, right? Quote unquote democracy. Let's put quote unquote we practice democracy, even though Nigeria is not a democratic nation. The people don't have any power. The people have the power, but they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to express it. They don't know how to like utilize it basically. So only the idiots in charge that do that just fuck things up. So we practice democracy, which obviously is not African. We practice what else do we do? Our religion is not our own. Our language, the English language, is not African. Our educational system is not ours. Our economic system is also not our own. Like, everything has been imposed on us by the Europeans that colonized us, right? So what if that never happened? Another reason I am asking this question is because let's just stick with Nigeria. Let's just stick with Nigeria specifically. the way Nigeria it has been molded over the years since colonization is not going. It feels like it's unnatural, right? It feels like it's forcing itself to be what it's not, in the sense that the leaders in Nigeria, I don't think we've ever had any good leaders. Let's just say that good luck, the former president Goodluck Jonathan and Umaru Musa Yaradua were, let's just say they were good leaders, right? Let's just exempt them from this our scenario. But aside that, I don't think that Nigeria has ever had any good leaders aside these two people. And I'm trying to imagine if it's because we are adopting um the governing style, or the leadership style of the Britons, the people that colonized us. I'm trying to imagine if the reason why things are not working out in Nigeria is because we're not doing it the way that Nigeria is naturally supposed to doing it. We are doing it the way that the colonizers taught us to do it. Because what if what how would our country have looked like if we were never colonized? Would we even have been a country? Like, as would we even have been a collection of different tribes and states and languages and cultures that have fused into that have fused into this giant geographical organism that calls itself Nigeria? Like, would we have been that? Because there was nothing like Nigeria before colonization. Nigeria. We all know. I'm hoping that we all know how the country Nigeria came to be. I hope that we all know. I hope that we are all familiar with the story. So imagine that we have, like, if I'm not correct, if I'm not wrong, we have 773 local governments in Nigeria, right? Am I correct? Let me look that up and let me just be sure. All right. I was almost correct. Nigeria has 774 local governments. That's fucking wild. Do you know what is more wild? Nigeria has 500 different distinct languages. Like, okay, according to what it says here, Nigeria is one of the most linguistically diverse countries in the world, with over not even 500, like with over 500 languages spoken. The official language being English, but it is spoken less frequently in rural areas and amongst people with lower education levels. That's crazy, man. That's fucking wild. That this amalgamation of people who speak more than 500 different languages were fused together to form this country that we now understand to be Nigeria, which is unnatural, right? Which is not supposed to be so at all. Like, Nigeria is not supposed to exist because we are so different and so diverse and so unique in our own ways that there has never been fluidity in Nigeria since its inception. Tongue twisters are my fucking doom, man. Since its inception, there's never been any uniformity in Nigeria. So, back to my initial question: is this because we are doing it the way that the colonizers taught us and forced us to do, or like, is that the reason why we're the way we currently are, or is there another way? And is that way something different, like us just disbanding Nigeria and then everyone going back to their tribes? And I know that is virtually impossible, but it's just me This is just me thinking out loud and trying to like come up with a solution or an answer as I'm just like winging it and just going going along with it. So, what would Africa have been like if we were never colonized? I'm sure that we know about the North Sentinel, the untouched, or should I say uncontacted tribe in North Sentinel Island in India, right? And I'm also sure that we also know about the Amazons that live in the Amazon forest, right? So these people, is it that we would have been like them? Like, would we have still been bushmen and still hunter gatherers and still living in like tribes and tiny villages with huts and have no quote unquote formal education like the Westerners do? Would we have would we even have evolved to the point where we are able to like look at the stars and like be able to observe the stars, be able to do complex things like mathematics and physics and astronomy? Would we, like, I'm just trying to imagine, would we have would we have been advanced? On the one hand, that's possible, that's plausible. It could have happened. It's possible that stuff like that could have happened, and let me tell you why. First of all, before I continue, my nose is fucking blocked. I have like, it's fucking cold right now, and I mean winter has come, obviously, and so my nose is fucking blocked. That's why you be hearing disgusting sounds that I make. So I'm sorry about that. So let me tell you why it's possible that not everywhere in Africa would have been quote unquote developed. There, as advanced, in fact, we all know that one of the most advanced places in the world, even till today, is Egypt, ancient Egypt. And ancient Egypt has been a bone of contention, has been a topic of discussion for thousands of years now, because people, the ancient Egyptians were fucking intelligent, man. They were so advanced for their time that even till today we don't know how the pyramids were built. We cannot fathom, we cannot conceptualize the process of how the pyramids at Giza were built. We cannot conceptualize, we cannot even fathom, we cannot even conceive of the fact that, or we cannot even like imagine how they stacked 2 million stones, 2 million giant rocks on each other to form like pyramids. We cannot do that even till today. We don't know the kind of technology that they used. We don't know the kind of tools that they used. We don't know how they dragged the stones from wherever they dragged them. We don't know how they like manage. We don't know much. So as much as we don't know, we have tried our best to fill in the blanks of our ignorance, and by then chalking it up to probably aliens, right? Because obviously the white people think that Africans are too dumb to create the pyramids, so it must be aliens, right? Fucking bastards. So as intelligent as the Egyptians were for their time, even for our time also, there were also places in Africa where there was no much going on at all. So obviously, but then we had other places in Africa, places like Benin in modern day Nigeria, that had bronze sculptures, that places like the Nri people, who we now call the modern day Igbos eastern Nigeria, or should I say southeastern Nigeria. So these places were um like advanced, so fucking advanced. Do you know that the longest wall, should I say, is it aside from the Great Wall of China, right? The longest wall in the world is also in Nigeria, right? The second longest wall is in Nigeria. I forgot the name, but maybe you can look it up for yourself. So in Nigeria specifically, there was a lot of advancement. What? There was a lot of innovation. Let's use that word instead, because my nose and my mouth are not working today. So there was a lot of like innovation, and there was a lot of technology used. There was also there is this video I was watching one time of this quote unquote witch doctor back in ancient times, doing what we understand and recognize as brain surgery. Like, it's crazy how there. And also, no, let me just stick to this point first of all. It's crazy how we were classified by the colonizers as virtually monkeys and just people and just apes. It's crazy how we're just stagged animals, because these colonizers didn't want to accept that. These colonizers didn't want to accept that we were, if not more advanced than them, we were intelligent, we had culture, we had education, we had languages, we had our own gods, we had our own system of government, we had our own unique, specific way of life, but they didn't want to acknowledge it, right? I mean, I don't know if you've heard of the Moors, right? The Moors were merchants from North Africa that traveled to Europe and taught the Europeans how to make soup and how to have a bath, because these fucking Europeans were so fucking dirty at the time that they didn't even have any concept of what taking a bath was. So it was the Moors that taught the Europeans how to make soup. The Moors from Africa taught the Europeans how to make soup. Like, we were trading all over the world in Africa. Like, we were trading with the Native Americans, we were trading with the Chinese, we were trading with the Japanese, we were trading with the Aboriginals, we were trading with the Europeans, the Spanish. Like, Africa was not a third world continent. It wasn't at all. If, for lack of a better thing, Africa was not a third world continent. Africa was, even before it was called Africa, was filled with a lot of brilliant, driven people. So, to answer my own question, no, I don't think that we would have been bush hunters. Not all of us, anyway, because I'm sure that there are places where I'm sure there would have been places, uncontacted places, where progress wouldn't have come as quickly as it was supposed to, or wouldn't have come as quickly as it's supposed to, right? Just to be truthful and just to be practical about it. So, but the truth is that we wouldn't have been as bad as I'm imagining that. We wouldn't have been as bad as I'm imagining us to be. No. So that's me answering my own question. What if we were never colonized? What would have happened to us? What would have happened to us if we were never colonized? If we just continued on that timeline, if we just continued that way, how would we have turned out? How would we have turned out in 21st century? How would life in Africa in the year 2022 be like right now? if we were never colonized by the Europeans, by the French, by the Arabs, by the Spanish, what would life in Africa be like right now? That's that's what I'm trying to think about right now. So how would life be like? Um I don't know how life would have been like, in all honesty. I don't know how life would have been like. Probably there would have been some form of integration, right? Probably there would be some form of obvious, because globalization is inevitable, right? So obviously, probably there will be integration, there will be communication, and because of this communication, because of this integration, because of this closeness, that this interaction and relationship that trade would have brought us, then we would learn from our neighbors from other continents, and they would also learn from us. Then we would adopt some of their ways of life, and they will also adopt some of our ways of life. Then we would also ways of life in the sense of, let's say, religion and culture, and even like system of government. I don't know. I'm just speedballing right here. So I'm just trying to I'm just thinking out loud, like I said before. So yeah, that's basically how it's going to happen. But because I cannot really paint a picture of how life would be like if Africa was never colonized, even though that's a very good question, which I don't actually have a good answer for, because I'm not that smart. What I want to say, even though it's going to be controversial, or even though it's going to sound insensitive, is that I think that at the end of the day, just hear me out, right? Just hear me out. I think that at the end of the day, slavery was a necessary evil. I think that whatever hand is driving the progress of humanity, whatever should I say, what's the word right now? Whatever cosmic being is in control, whoever is like steering us into wherever it wants us to go, whatever game the gods are playing, I think that, sorry about that, I think that slavery was a necessary tool for should I say, for humanity to be properly integrated with each other, for there to be this for lack of a better term again, globalization, for there to be globalization, for everyone to get to know each other. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Slavery was the most essential tool for that to happen. Let me explain. So for as long as humanity, not for as long as, because slavery was actually slavery is not as old as humanity. The reason why people started enslaving each other, because I always go back to this book. The Origin of the Family, Private Property and the State by Friedrich Engels. I always like quoting this book. So the reason that according to this book, the reason why we have slavery is because when man initially started hunting and gathering and started acquiring wealth in the form of land and animals, and then women lost mother rights, because before we used to have a matriarchal system where the mother was the head of the family. Believe it or not, this happened back in like barbarian times. Women used to be heads of the families, because there was no such thing as marriage the way we understand it to be today. But that's a story for another day. So when man started acquiring wealth, right, and so he needed his wealth to be looked after and to be passed to his children, man figured out that, oh, him and his children could not like till the farm alone or look after the animals by themselves, because there were not a lot of them. So they figured out that, oh, whenever we go to war and then we fight other clans and other tribes, there's no point like killing them, or because back then, if there was war between two tribes, right, whatever prisoners they find they were just killed and disposed of. So they figured out that, oh, these people that we are killing, we could use them as workers to help us like till our land and like look after our crops and our animals. So that was the very beginning of slavery. So that's what I'm trying to say. This is from the book, The Origin of the Family, Private Property and State. So what was I saying? Slavery is not as old as humanity. Right? Slavery was a kind of a new thing that we adopted, and every nation in the world has practiced slavery at one point has practiced slavery, different forms of slavery at one point in time or another. Africans enslaved Africans, Europeans enslaved. In fact, the word slave is a Slavic word. I mean, it spells itself. The word slave is a Slavic word, right? So the Europeans enslaved each other, the South Americans enslaved each other, the Native Americans enslaved. I mean, we have all done it. Humanity is one colossal asshole. Like, humanity itself is one giant, massive dickhead. So we have been assholes to ourselves for as long as we have existed. So slavery is not this unforgivable evil thing that Americans did to Africans 400 years ago. That's not true. Even though it was horrible, we're not going to deny the fact that owning another human being and making them do, like, we're not going to judge them by our 2022 morals. We're not going to judge people that lived in fucking 15th century America, or should I say 16th century America, by the standard of our by our standard today. That's just unfair. So we all enslaved each other. That's a fact, and that's a hard pill that we have to like swallow. So what I'm trying to say is that slavery, whatever hand that is driving us, whatever captain that is steering our fate, made slavery a necessary tool for humanity to progress, in the sense that for people to get mixed up, for ideas to develop, for innovation to happen, for progress to succeed, people from one part of the world somehow had to be dropped, or should I say had to be integrated in other parts of the world, so that their ideas can develop and progress can happen, essentially. So and so whatever gods or whatever games the gods are playing chose the Spanish and the Europeans and the French to as catalysts for this for whatever it is that whatever game that they are playing to happen. So that's why, in my own point of view, or in my own weird way of looking at humanity and looking at reality, that's why Africans were enslaved, because Africa is this wealth of knowledge, is this wealth of talent that is just, is this treasure island. Basically, Africa is this treasure island that had to be stolen, basically stolen, not because the people stealing them are evil or whatever, but because it is our fate. It is the natural progression of things for slavery to exist, so that the world will progress. And so that's basically that's basically how and why we had slavery, and eventually slavery had to end. And now we have a lot of talented people all over the world from Africa that have done a lot of great things, that have done a lot of like innovative, intelligent, applaudable things that we cannot even imagine, right? So even like there is this I don't know if you know, this. Most the people that get the highest scores, let's say in the UK, right? The people that have the highest scores in SAT tests and exams are Nigerians, right? Some of the most educated people in America, some of the most successful educated people in America are Nigerians. It's people with like the highest GPA scores in exams are Nigerians. So it's like we Nigerians are so talented that it's like we're so unmatched when it comes to showing off or showing ourselves, right? But but that only happens outside Nigeria. It happens outside Nigeria because when we are let loose, right? When we are let loose, and when we are given the freedom to express ourselves, we express ourselves to the best of our abilities, and we end up and the whole world marvels, right? But back home in Nigeria, it's just so it's like there is no hope. Okay, let me even ask this question: is there really any role models in Nigeria right now? Like in Nigeria, the country, like are there role models that young people can look up to? And what I mean by role models, I don't mean musicians. I don't fucking mean celebrities or influencers. I mean actual intellectual people that are actually intelligent, people that are actually creative, people that are actually like people that bring actual positivity into the world. Like, do people like that exist in Nigeria? Like, do we have that? Are there people that young people can look up to and want to emulate and want to be like when they grow up? Like the average Nigerian child, right? Let's say you ask them what they want to be when they grow up. What would be their answer? Obviously, we all know that the basic things that Nigerians want to be when they grow up are either they want to be either a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Because if you're not one of these three things, every Nigerian parent thinks that if you're not one of these three things, that you're a nobody and you're a disappointment to society. Meanwhile, there are other things that we can be in this life aside being either a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Because basically that's how our parents grew up. Our parents grew up in a time where these three professions were the utmost professions that anybody can hold. And so since most of them since some of them didn't have the opportunity to become one of these things, they felt like, oh, they had their children, they had to like create a world for their children where their children would have to be one of these three things, even though some of their kids or some of their children don't want to be any of these three things. So parents that have children that don't want to be either a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer automatically see those children as failures in life. Let's say if you're passionate about painting, or passionate about music, or passionate about something else entirely, your most Nigerian I don't know if I'm correct. I don't know if you guys can relate to what I'm saying, because this is basically my life story. So if you're just seen as a failure in life if you're not passionate about one of these three things. So my question, the question I was asking before is like, what if you ask the average Nigerian child today what they want to be in future, what kind of answer would they give you? Like, has Nigeria opened up to more things that people can aspire to be? Like, for example, let's say, and are those things meaningful, and are those things practical and let's say fulfilling and progressive? Like, for example, now in America, right, back, let's say in the 90s or something, you ask a millennial, let's say you ask a child back in the 90s or early 90s, you ask them what they want to be. Some of them would say they want to be a firefighter, some of them would say they want to be a pilot, some of them would say they want to be a teacher, or they want to be like the president even. But these days, if you ask an American child what they want to be, they will say a TikTok influencer, they will say a YouTuber, which is wild, man. Times have changed. So, what would a Nigerian child answer if asked the question of what they want to be when they grow up? I hope they're not. I hope they're not going to say fucking influencer, or I hope they're not going to like call one kind of useless profession like that. That doesn't make any sense. And also, I hope that, because our parents made the mistake of wanting us to be what they never could have been, right? So I hope we are also not going to make the mistake of wanting our children to be what we never could have been, right? For example, now I've seen videos of people online, Nigerians online, not caring if their child wants to be that, not wanting their child to be that lawyer or doctor or engineer, and now like basically allowing their child to be quote unquote what the child wants to be. It's like, oh, our parents made that mistake with us, we are not going to make that mistake with our own children. And so therefore, in the bid for us to not make the mistake our parents made with us, we are now unconsciously also making that mistake with our children by allowing. It's like we can never get it right. Like, humanity can never get it right. Our parents got it wrong, their own parents got it wrong, and now us trying our best to get it right, we're also getting it wrong. Like, we all have this intention of doing the right thing, but we all eventually end up getting it wrong and doing it not the way that we're supposed to do it. So I hope that these, like the videos I've seen, like, oh, like for example, one video I saw, it's like the girl was like, oh, you don't want to you don't want to do this, or there's no problem, don't do it, you can choose whatever you want to do in life, you can be a DJ. Because the child was like, I want to be a DJ, and the mother was like, oh, okay, you can be a DJ if you want to be, you can follow your dreams, or whatever that means. I hope it will not come back to bite us in the ass. I hope this idea of us wanting our children, those of us that have children, those of us that have kids, I hope this idea of wanting our kids to do and be whoever they want to be will not come back to bite us in the ass. Because as much as we have given them this freedom to be themselves, I feel like we are not supposed to. I feel like the way our parents did it in their own time is we should also do it that way, because right now, back then there were not a lot of options, but we have so many options today. So many options. And in my opinion, having so many options is actually a bad thing. Like, life is easier, life is a lot simpler if you don't have too many options. Like, you choose this or that, and then you go with one of them and you just keep pushing. But when you have this and this and this and this and that and those and that and that and that, you're just so convoluted, and you're just so stuck, because there's so much that you can do and you don't know. Like, have you I don't know, have you tried playing a video game where you're supposed to go one way, but then you see another way and you're like, I have to follow this other way, and I'm going to come back to this way I'm supposed to go, and then you just get lost. So that's the way I see it, right? Too many options will just like fuck things up. So the smaller the options, the easier it is to choose. That's all I'm trying to say. I hope that we young new parents trying to trying to do the best for our kids, right? I hope it doesn't our effort, or let's say our intention, or our reason for wanting to like do whatever it is we want to do for our kids, or allowing them to be themselves, or allowing them to choose for themselves, doesn't come back to bite us in the ass. Because there's this question there's this question I have in mind, right? Like, our Nigerian parents, like, did our parents get discipline right? In the sense that I'm sure most Nigerians, like most of us, were flogged when we were kids. Most of us were disciplined. Most of us were caned, right? Even to the extent of being flogged in schools and churches and public places, right? So, flogging your child, right? Is that a very good way to discipline your child? And you now, as a new parent, like we millennials now that are getting married and giving birth, like, will you hit your child? Will you spank your child? Is that something that you're going to do? If it is something that you're going to do, as in, how do you, like, why is it that we see violence? Because I see it as violence, right? Why is it that we assume that violence is the only way to resolve issues? Like, is it that there is no other way that we can make our is it that there is no other way that you can make your child to behave? Like, you can control your child, and the only way you have to control your child or keep your child in line is to resort to violence? Is the fact that our parents used violence to keep us in line, to quote unquote train us, was that the best way? Because there are a lot of bitter Nigerians right now. Like, many of us are so bitter, and many of us are so naturally angry and naturally tensed up. So, I feel like that's one of the reasons why we're just so angry all the time, because we were flogged as kids, and it's traumatizing to be flogged as a child. Because you being flogged as a child, right, is like you as an adult flogging a child. We all know that kids are not as mature or as evolved as adults are, right? Even though they might be smart and mouthy and saucy and rude sometimes, but they're not as smart, and they're not as evolved, and they're not as developed as adults are, as adults are. And so you flogging a child or like beating a child, you're trying to, you're saying that you're expecting the child to know everything that you as an adult knows, like to be able to behave in every way that you as an adult behaves, like to be able to understand and evaluate and just experience life and reality the way you as an adult understands, evaluates and experiences reality, which doesn't make any sense. Like I've seen, there was one time I was at the bus stop, right? Back in Nigeria, I was at the bus stop one Sunday morning on my way to church, and this woman was like beating her baby like an actual toddler, beating her toddler, and because she wants the toddler to stop crying. Like it doesn't make any sense to me, because it's like, and people were like, "Madam, no, they beat them now, na small pikin." It's like, don't you understand that that's an actual toddler, and that toddler does not know any better or does not know anything. So like, what are you trying to make the toddler do? Like, what are you saying? Are you trying to like make a toddler to stop, to not be, to not do what a toddler is naturally supposed to do? Like, are you trying to make a toddler a 30-year-old adult? Doesn't, how does that compute? How does that make any sense? Doesn't make any sense to me. So in my own opinion, right? In my own opinion, I don't think that flogging a child or like spanking a child is the best way you can discipline a child. There are so many other ways you can do it. And most of the Nigerians that I've talked to about this, that I have like had a conversation with about this issue, have all disagreed. Have all, like 100% of the Nigerians that I have had this conversation with have all disagreed with me, and they all say that the way they were brought up is the same way that they're going to bring their own kids up when it comes to flogging and spanking and punishing. And the cycle of bitterness and the cycle of just trauma is going to continue in a lot of Nigerian homes, because there is this, because we have to like break it. It's never going to be broken unless we actively decide and actively choose to break this cycle of bitterness. And if we don't break it, I don't think that Nigeria is going to change as much as we want it to change. So back to my initial question: what would have Nigeria, or what would have Africa looked like if we were never colonized? I think that it would have been impossible for Africa to never have been colonized, because slavery is a natural catalyst for progression, for the progression of humanity. And there was no other way that humanity would have progressed if slavery did not take place. Slavery in one shape or form or the other had to take place for humanity to progress. So it's not possible for Africa to not have been colonized. Or or let's say that Africa was never colonized. It could have been the other way around. Africa would have been the colonizers, maybe in an alternate universe, right? Africa would have been the one to colonize. Let's say the Europeans or the Spanish people came to Africa to try to enslave Africans, and then we fought back and won. Then we would have been the ones to colonize. Then the Europeans would have been speaking Igbo, and their gods would have been Chukwu Abiyama, and their educational system would have been whatever educational system that we had, and their mode of dressing and their like fucking food, most of the foods that they eat would have been quintessentially what we now know as the Igbo mode of, like you'd have been seeing African men wearing Igbo regalia, It would have been. I mean, there's an alternate universe where Africa was was the Africans were the colonizers, and the whites were enslaved, and the whites as are seeking for reparations and seeking for the whites are the minorities, and North America is like a third world country, and Africa is like world power, and we're and and they're using the naira for international currency exchange and stock market exchange and all of that stuff. There's an alternate universe where that is potentially happening, but in our own reality, in our but what okay, but it still doesn't negate the fact that slavery is a very essential tool for the progress of humanity. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's that about that. That was a very difficult road to navigate for me to come to this conclusion of whether Africa would have ever been colonized. That was a very difficult road, and I hope that whoever is listening understands where I'm coming from and understands what I'm trying to say. Now, another question I want to ask. Not that I am a not that I am a proponent for slavery, right? Not that I support slavery, not that I but I understand, right? I like I said before, I understand, but I understand that this happened and this was necessary for humanity to progress. But what I'm trying to say now is that like I don't support it. Right? There could have been if I was okay, let's say if I was let's say I am let's say I was God, right? By the before I continue, right? Before I continue, people like to ask me, okay, so you don't believe in God, what then do you believe in? Let me tell you what I believe in. I believe in a nice meal, right? A nice meal and like a nice glass of wine. I believe in like good music and just doing good and being a good person. I believe in a perfectly rolled blunt that I can smoke and just chill with. I believe in like I believe in good sex. I believe in just being not nice but kind. Because being nice is like, yeah, that's weird. Why will I be a nice person? I would like to be a fucking asshole, but a kind fucking asshole, right? So, and also, people will always ask me like, okay, so you don't believe in God? Like, what if you don't believe in God? Then what will you? As in, what's what vehicle is your how do they move it, why are you moral, like what drives your what powers your morality? I don't know, man. I don't fucking know. But if I was to believe in a god, right, if I was to create a god for myself, the god is going to be a deist, like he's going to be a deist god, not a theist god, because there are three types of gods: the theist god, the one that 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 people believe meddles in their personal affairs, like for example the ones that Christians worship. Then there is a deist god, the one that created everything in and then doesn't want to have any relationship with its creation, just watches things and doesn't care. And then there's a pantheist god, the one that that people sub that people believe is just nature, like the one that the deist god is like just nature, right? It's in the trees, it's in the wind, it's in water, the birds that sing, is just beauty in itself. So that's the pantheist god. So if I was to believe in a god, or if I was to create a god for myself, My God is going to be a deist God, in the sense that yes, this God, this first of all, the way by the what if I'm going to create a God, the way the God is going to look like, this God is going to the God is going to be like the God is going to be like a fucking Kenyan. He's going to be a woman with the skin of a as in a Kenyan black woman. I don't know where I'm going with this. She would be like she would be Kenyan black, if you understand what I'm saying. You know how Kenyans look like, right? So black and so beautiful. And with forest thick dreads and like cowrie waist beads around her hips and fucking shiny all the time. But this God is not going to care about me, whatever I do. Although me as a person, me as an individual, right? I although even though I'm not perfect, um, at least at least uh I try my best to be better than I was yesterday, right? So me doing the best as I can, or me doing the best as I can, right? Me being kind to people, me working out to keep my body in shape, to be clean, me being creative and being artistic, me being positive in all my endeavors, me having great sex, smoking good weed, drinking good wine, just living life to the fullest, right? This is what I would assume that my God would want me to do. Aside from that, I would also assume that this God does not care about me, right? So, if, what I'm trying to say is that man created God man created God in his own image. So whatever gods that people worship are figments of their imagination. Like every god is different for every single individual. Have you not seen where Oloshos are praying to God for customers? Have you not seen where Yahoo boys are like praying to God to like get clients? So God is the excuse that people use for their own selfish benefits, right? God is that excuse that people use to like reassure themselves that they are worthy of something. So why then would you, like, I know some, like I have a friend who is 30 years and still a virgin because Jesus Christ, because apparently she wants to wait till marriage before she has sex. Jesus Christ. Oh yeah, yo. As in, okay. Another thing I would say is, let's not even talk about my friend because that would be kind of weird, or I don't know. There's this video. I don't know if you guys watch what's it called? There's this program on YouTube. I forgot the name, where people with opposing views come together and then talk among themselves. So in one of the episodes, they're like conservative Christians versus liberal Christians. So one of the conservative Christians is this guy who obviously is gay. Like, as in, once you look at this nigga, he's fucking gay, but he's a conservative Christian and he does not want to act on his feelings because then he'll be sinning against his God. Like, what kind of prison are you deciding to put yourself in just because you don't want to offend this your God? Like, why would your God make you, what kind of test? Like, okay, they always talk about, oh, whatever it is that you're going through is obviously a test from your God. So what kind of test is your God putting you through by making you obviously gay, obviously objectively gay, and then putting you in a situation where if you act on that impulse, if you act on that feeling, then you're going to be punished forever and ever and ever. Like, what is the end game, or what is the outcome of this test? I'm sorry about the sirens that you're hearing. These fucking cops, man. No, that's an ambulance. Whoever whoever is whoever is going to the hospital now. Hello. So back to what I was saying. What is the point of having a God that imprisons you and doesn't give you the freedom to be who you're supposed to be? In fact, gives you the freedom to be who you're supposed to be, and then turns around and punishes you for being who you're supposed to be. Like, what's the point of that kind of God? Man creates God in his image. So if you're going to create God in your own image, why don't you create the best God that you can create? Because the God that the Christians created in the Bible was the best. As in, they were trying to create the baddest God that they could, that the baddest God that can one up every other God that existed in the realm at that point in time. So that's why we have the Christian God. So you now living in 2022 now, you're an African, you're Nigerian, and you're a Christian because because apparently you don't know your history. You're now adopting the God of these people that lived 2,000 years ago, and so you're adopting their own values, these 2,000-year-old values, and these 2,000-year-old principles in 2022 because you don't know any better. So why are you just imprisoning yourself? Why don't you just drop that and continue the way they've been doing it for thousands of years, as like so many other people are doing now, right? Where everybody has a different God, but just with the same name, either Jesus or Allah, right? Everybody's God is different, but they all bear the same name. So why would you want to subject yourself to this torture? Because do you know what it feels like to not have sex? To just be a fucking virgin until you get married. It's like you're banking so much on marriage that you're deciding to not be human. You're deciding to be less than human. And so many people think that, oh, marriage is this thing that was created by God, so that is this sacred thing created by God, not knowing that marriage is just as a result of marriage is the outcome of slavery. Marriage is just a concept that humans created to help them manage their property. Many people don't know that. Many people believe that marriage is a fucking something that their God created, which doesn't make any sense if you actually sit down to think about it. So you're banking on marriage to be less than a human being because apparently it's what your God would want. A lot of people are living sad lives, man, in the name of being righteous, in the name of being holy. Lots of people are walking zombies. Lots of people are NPCs, all in the name of them trying to appease and trying to be on the same page with this their deity that they worship, which is just sad. So let's not go too deep into that, man. That is just a sad state of life for so many people. So yeah, if I was going to create a God, I would create a God that would allow me to just be myself. But not everybody should be themselves, right? Not everybody deserves to be themselves. Like, you cannot expect a necrophiliac or a pedophile or a kleptomaniac or a psychopath or a sociopath to be themselves. Not everybody should be themselves, because if we're just going to allow everybody to be, like, you always hear people say, just be yourself. No, not everybody should be themselves, because if we are going to allow people to be themselves, there's a lot that would go wrong. So some people, as long as it equates to positivity and progress, are allowed to be themselves. But not everybody should be themselves. A pedophile should not be. Don't be yourself. And it's also kind of sad that people are born with that tendency to want to find little children. That's just sad, man. Imagine being born, right? Like there's this, I've forgotten the comedian that made that beast, right? That made that joke. Like, oh, I was born, and when I was 6 years old, I was attracted to my fellow 6 year old female friends. And then when I was 20 years old, I was also attracted to my fellow 20-year-old female friends. But then there are people that when they were born, and when they were 6 years old, they were attracted to their like 6 year old, the 6 year old opposite sex. And then when they grew up and like got to be like 20 years old, they still somehow found themselves being attracted to like 6 year old opposite sex. That's just mad, man. Evolution does not care. Evolution is one nasty bastard, in fact. And I feel sorry for those people. And as much and as messed up as that is, you just can't be yourself. You don't have to be yourself. I don't know how we can solve the problem. Like, okay, we are finally able to solve the problem of homosexuality. We understand that, oh, this is something that is a natural phenomenon and it is harmless as long as both consenting adults are like okay with it, right? So we have finally solved the problem of homosexuality. But I don't understand I don't understand how we are going to solve the problem of pedophilia. I don't understand how we are going to like come up with okay, so there are usually no solutions, just trade-offs. So what can we trade off? What's the best way that we can solve, that we can help pedophiles? What's the best way that we can resolve this issue of people who are attracted to children? I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know where I'm going with this. I feel like I've been talking for a long time now, and I have to end this podcast. I have to end this episode today because I've been saying a lot. So yeah, that's that about that. So anyway, thank you guys for listening to today's podcast. Thank you for spending your time with me. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, General Prime 1. And that's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. I would also like your feedback. So I would also like you to like reach out to me and leave and talk to me and interact with me and let me know what you think about the podcast, and let me know what you have, what if you have any questions or if you have any input on what I've talked about today. So just follow me on Twitter and hit me up, man. Just hit me up, basically. Let's have a discussion. So thank you for sticking with me today, and thank you for lending me your ears, and I'll talk to you guys next week. All right, bye everybody.